Well, it is a Friday afternoon at about 9 a.m. and I am on the one wheel, headed downtown to go do a collaboration brew with Zilker Brewing. As soon as I walked through the door, the microphone started acting up. It became unplugged in my pocket, so all of this audio is garbage. But right here I show the recipe for the collaboration. We are doing a Czech pills recipe, but at the last minute, our yeast cell count didn't come back where we wanted it, so we had to switch up the yeast from Czech pills yeast, which I normally use, to Augustiner yeast, which they had on hand and was looking nice and healthy. So it's pretty much pills, little carafoam, acidulated malt, honey malt, and yeah, basically a 12-degree pale lager with a lot of Czech sauce. All right, and then I run into Marco. This is the head brewer and one of the owners of Zilker, and that's Patrick on the left, who's another one of the owners of Zilker Brewing Company. I'm just introducing him here, and then I move on to show the mill room, showing the grist case and the mill, and then this is a chain and disc auger, that red connection stuff that pulls the grain above head into the mash tun. And this is what it looks like when it's getting mashed in. And that is Forrest, one of the other owners. All right, looking sweet. We're bringing in also these automatic mash rates. Definitely not something that I have in my system, but they're nice. Get all that nice sweet grain mixed up. So we just finished mashing in 305 gallons, exactly what we were shooting for. Got the kettle here. 153.3. All right, we're mashed in.
It's gonna rest for 20 minutes to half an hour, and then
Cool.
we'll start our boil off while we'll do this all while he's knocking out the first batch.
Sounds good. Yeah, they're brewing another collaboration beer today with Bangers, a local beer bar. So lots of moving parts and people, but good stuff. I think so far it's looking good. A little wort recirculation. A little boil off action. All right, so we are done with the mash. We've boiled off. We're about to run off into the kettle, but we looked at the recipe and we had a Saaz edition at first wort, and then we also had a 90-minute edition, but went ahead and called an audible and changed that, pushed that up to 60 minutes. Yeah, just didn't want to have hops sitting in there that long, but I'm glad that we caught that before we added some hops in at 90 minutes. Yeah, the joys of collaborating. You get to make decisions on the fly. So we're gonna do that, we're gonna run it off, and then, you know, get the boil going and grain out, and hopefully we get some of that on camera. Going from the bottom of the mash tun, recirculating through the pump, up through this valve system, and into the top of the kettle, and it's kind of trickling down the side of the kettle there. But yeah, we are gonna fill this up and then get the kettle full and then start the boil. It'll be 90 minutes, and then we'll add our first hop addition at 60 minutes. And we'll also be graining out. Break for food. Got the spicy boys, fried chicken nugs, and a little roti with Penang curry sauce. So we're still waiting on the kettle to fill up, but we've got the steam jackets on, or at least one of them, right there. And we're probably right around, I don't know, 9-10 barrels, something like that. So a little bit longer, still sparging pretty solid and steady. Mostly just a waiting game. The less glorious aspect of brewing is that you're just waiting around a lot. Let's go check out the rest of the brewery. Scrubbing? Scrubbing. This is Mark. He's the hired janitor here at Zilker. Fun fact, I've known Mark for many years, since we were kids. This is the cellar. They're all 15s, right? They're all 15 barrel fermentation vessels, hot liquor tank, 30. Got a 30 barrel cold liquor tank, and like a 15 supplemental cold liquor tank, which is nice for today because they brewed a batch earlier and we're gonna be knocking out a lager at like 50 degrees, so we're gonna need a lot of cold liquor.
And then this is the big cellar. So these are the big boys in here. Lots of tanks. How big are these tanks?
30.
These are 30s. These are 60s. Okay, 360s and like what? 830s, something like that. So they got a lot of space, a lot of tanks. They got pallets of cans, kegs. That's our yeast that we're gonna be using today for the brew. A little part shelf over here.
And this is where the background music got loud enough that I was worried about copyright infringement. So this is a hop cannon, a Rolec hop injector they use for their dry hop beers, more kegs, more pallets of grain, lots of overhead storage, and more cans stacked up high with the forklift. And then over here on this side is more cans with a depalletizer to lead into the canning line where they can all of their beer. And back there are bright tanks that they feed the beer into the canning line with, and a big ass walk-in cooler.
A little bigger than the Tanglefoot setup. The annoying thing about collaborations is that usually it's just an excuse to get together and get drunk at like 10 a.m. But thanks, dude. But that's why we started at 11 today. And now that we've started, you know, got to enjoy it. All right, so this is the big old tub that they bring in to grain out. This is the much, much larger version of the bags that I use at Tanglefoot, but catch some of this on film. So we are kettle full, and we got about 20 barrels, and these steam jackets are heating up super nice, a lot quicker than the old propane burners. Oh yeah, beautiful. Got those rakes rolling in there, helping push all that grain out. Definitely a nice benefit. Get a little pre-boil gravity. This thing rips. Solid 210. This is what graining out looks like. All right, so the cool thing about these rakes is that there's a little chain that holds up this like main rake portion, and then when you drop it down, that's how you get most of the grain out, and that's what just happened right there. That is starting to push the grain outward, and then hopefully right into this bin. And then after the brew day, we have to eat all of this. It's a lot of work. Collaboration. Let's get this shit. Why not? Man, this is so much nicer when you don't have to do it all the time. Just come and pop in, do a little grain out, drink a beer. That's what it's all about. Got a little yeast sample here to test the viability and the vitality. A little microscope, a little Marco.
So this process is super important on a larger scale brewery. Having a lab setup is crucial to being able to make sure that you have healthy yeast in the correct amount. So right here, Marco's taking a sample of yeast and diluting it in a solution of distilled water. And then he's gonna take that solution and dilute it again into more water. And then he's gonna take this dye and incorporate it into a sample, which he is then going to put on a hemocytometer. Basically, it's this glass plate that has little etched lines in it that you can kind of see a grid underneath the microscope. And once you get that sample under the microscope, you can take a look at the number of cells, and the number of cells that are dyed are dead. So it gives you a representation of how many cells are alive within a given amount of yeast.
Our little friends. So the yeast is good. We're gonna put it in. Unfortunately, it's not the Czech lager yeast that we picked up. That wasn't quite enough yeast to cover the whole batch. So we're switching to this Augustina. We are about 90% of the way through the boil, and we've got one more hop addition, 8-minute Saz addition, and then we'll have flame out, and then whirlpool, and probably drink a beer.
And this is the final Saz addition at 8 minutes, and this is a lot of Saz, many pounds of Saz as opposed to many ounces like I did on a 4-barrel system. So yeah, we're just dumping this whole bag in. I believe it's 8 pounds.
All right, we are done with boil. That was a 90-minute boil, and we are at flame out. Now we gotta take a gravity reading, see if we hit our number. Got this fancy gravity tester.
Still a little hot. It's reading 11.6 right now, 11.7.
That's pretty good to me. We're good. We're pretty close to 12. It's still warm, so it's creeping up, but influencing. All right, we got this tank. Number one, as always, we the best. Got it all sanitized, hooked up with a manifold. Got a yeast brink over here. We're just gonna send all this wort into that tank. All right, here's our recipe sheet. How do we do?
Did all right. We're sitting at 11.8 post boil right now, but I'm gonna pull another sample off our knockout line.
Cool. Looking good. We talk a lot about drinking during collaborations and stuff, but it's really it's a learning process. Thanks, dude. Appreciate you. So it's not all about the drinking. You got to get in the brew day and do all the work. Don't let them fool you. We're not drinking all day long. All right, it's knockout time. Gonna send wort from the brew house through the hose all the way to the sanitized fermentation vessel. And that is the good stuff right there. Smell test. Switch those valves. We're knocking out.
As the wort was getting knocked out, it was time to grab another beer and maybe pass some time with some basketball.
We're waiting on knockout. We found a ball. We're shooting it. First shot I've taken in like 2 years. Come on. I mean, come on. Oh, if it wasn't on camera, you wouldn't believe it. Whew, that's how you work up a sweat and finish your beer. Let's go check on this knockout. So what'd you think of this brew day, Marco? Perfect brew day. Every step of the way, everything was ideal, and yeah, you drained out and everything. It was good.
Yeah, I didn't do anything.
Good stuff. Most important part of the collaboration, I totally forgot. Got to go to the Grackle and take a shot. Partners in crime.
Use a brown belt.
You don't have to pay, you should probably think about it. I think the only
Cheers.
that you made.
Cross promotion.
All right, end of collab. It's knocked out, or almost knocked out. Great job. Good brewing, dude. Marco, great job. Thanks. And then we're going to release this in what, like 2 months?
2 months-ish.
We're going to more info on the promotional side of things, but yeah, this was a collaboration brew day at Zilker Brewing, and the greatest brewer to ever live, me.